like to call the meeting of the Redevelopment Authority, Citizens Authority Committee. Could we have roll call, please?
Vice Chairperson Hanneman. Member Millay.
Here.
Member Kennedy.
Here.
Member Barrett.
Here.
Member Cardinal.
Here.
Member Justice.
Here.
A quorum's present.
All right. First item, as always, is the public comment. And the public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Carson City Redevelopment Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item for tonight. Any public comment? Not seeing any, we'll move on. You know, at this juncture right now, I'd like to just make a quick little comment, and I think we all have the same feeling, and that our hearts and thoughts are going out to another tragedy in Texas yesterday, and just want to say to those families that have lost loved ones that, you know, we're all thinking about them. All right, for possible action, approve the minutes of the August 7th meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I wasn't here.
You were?
Okay. I move to approve the minutes of the RAC meeting from August 7th.
Right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Courtney abstains. Was it here? Okay, got that out of our way. Lee, are we going to rearrange the agenda a little bit here? Okay.
Yeah, good evening. Lee Plummel for the record. So the first item is going to be to elect a chairperson. What I'd like to modify to accommodate some schedules is to move item 4C regarding the Christmas ornaments to after election of the chairperson. And then, so the first item will be election of a chairperson. And while I'm talking about that, so as you know, your previous chair has withdrawn, or you resigned from RAC, so we don't have one. Our vice chair's out of the country this evening, so I've asked the next senior person in line to chair the meeting, at least to start the meeting. But what you're going to be filling is a vacancy, the chairperson vacancy that Chris Wickstead left, but that term expires at the end of this year. So you'll have chair and vice chair elections at your first meeting in 2018. Modify the agenda and that regarding item A. We'll go to 4A, then 4C.
Oh, okay, you want to do 4A first.
Turn your mic on, please.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, for possible action to elect a RAC chair for the remainder of 2017. Staff summary, the RAC bylaws require the election of a chair and vice chair at the first RAC meeting of the calendar year, and formally elect chair. The formerly elected chair resigned from the RAC, leaving a vacancy for the remainder of 2017. New elections for chair and vice chair will occur at the RAC's first meeting in 2018. So, do we have any?
Can I just move to nominate Craig for the rest of the 2017 season session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Well, thank you.
Fast election.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Now we'd like to move forward to item 4C, possible action to approve the redevelopment Christmas ornaments themes for 2018 through 2020. And this is We do this every,
We do.
it seems like it was just a year ago that we did a whole list of them, but anyway.
3 years. Right.
Since 2003, the Carson City Redevelopment Agency has annually created Christmas ornaments based on historic buildings in Carson City. These ornaments are sold to the local retailers, or sold for the local retailers, which then resell the ornaments to the public. And tonight we have the fortune of having Supervisor Lori Bagwell here. She's going to go over that item as she is still involved with that. And so, Lori, would you please?
Thank you guys very much. I think in your packets you have a list of all of the previous ornaments that we've done, and as Craig has indicated, I've for years been going around the community looking for wonderful opportunities to make historic buildings and what we can do for further ornaments. And so I picked 3 that for consideration. The Wagnema House that's in Mills Park on the Sealy Loop. The Western Nevada College has the observatory, and then consideration for the Stewart Indian School. I think those are all historic buildings that we have not done in the past, and so I'm looking for you to let me know if those are good ideas, or if you have any other ones you'd like for consideration that we can even add to the list. And I like to get 3 to 5 years worth of ornaments so that I'm prepared and working on them to get good pictures. Usually in July, I try to get really, really good pictures that I can send to the ornament maker. And so I'm happy to answer any questions, take other ideas, or say yay.
Comments from the board?
Hi, Lori. Good list. I have just one question on the timing of, I think they're all good selections, on the Stewart Indian School. What's the timing of that visitor center opening? And I was wondering if that should maybe coincide with that.
I don't actually know when they're going to open that. I've got to call in to Sherry, and I'd be more than happy to try and, if it's better to make it 19, 20, 21. And so if you want me to try to coordinate Stewart Indian School with that opening, I don't have.
That was just an idea. It's kind of commemorated in that way, and and the only suggestion I have, it's going to be a bit left field, is probably Jack's Bar, as we were talking about it, just because it may not, I'm not sure if it'll make it in 2021.
I can add it to the list, and I
Okay.
always go back and use a current picture and a historic picture.
Okay, so
because
maybe it's
that's
that
really-
historic?
Yeah, I
That's
could
an
take a
idea.
historic picture
Okay.
on that if you guys want to.
Okay, so maybe that coincides with its demise. I'm not sure what happens, but that's kind of my other idea.
Demise on its own, not with
I'm not
any-
sure. I'm not sure what the outcome might be, but okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other comments from the board?
If the Ormsby
Yes?
House sells, let's do that one sometime.
There you go. Not a bad idea.
I'll just make a comment. I was a little surprised by the Jack C. Davis Observatory, only because everything up till this time has been very historic, and the observatory was built since I've been here, so I wouldn't consider it really historic. I know it's a very prominent
Right.
building now.
Craig, that just means you're old.
I did not say that.
I did. Historic buildings don't go back that far anymore. I think you can get on the historic register if you were, and I'm old, so I can say there's a historic register if your building is younger than I am, and probably younger than you are.
Yeah, I just
And I
thought,
think
have
you're
we
right
run?
that we're looking for significant buildings of which we can pay tribute to its contribution to the community.
Yeah, I just was kind of wondering, have we run out? And if you look at the list, we have gotten.
I did ask for any future
We've
options
definitely
you
got.
could give me.
We've had a good selection up to now, because there's been quite a number of years we've been doing this, so. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. And if you have any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, so possible action to recommend these 3 ornaments for the next 3 years?
I move to approve the following Christmas ornament themes. 2018 Wagneba House, 2019 WNC Observatory, 2020 Stewart Indian School.
Would you accept from the second or a friendly amendment of, if we want to, we can flip it if it makes sense to do one of them earlier? Obviously, we'll be doing the Munka right away, but the Indian School might want to be moved up, but we can decide that later.
Okay, so
Second. That's around the horn second.
Okay. With the amendment, it's been seconded. We just left it open for a rotation or a movement of the Indian Stewart School to tie in with the opening of their, is it a museum? Or auditorium?
Visitor center or something.
Yeah. So we would like to tie that in with that event, so there may be a change in the order. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there any public comment? None?
Just call the vote. Just call the vote. You gotta turn your mic on.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we'll go back to the normal order here. And 4B is possible discussion only to provide a presentation regarding the 60% design of the downtown Curry Street streetscape project and to improve the 5 cross streets between Carson Street and Curry Street from Musser to Robinson. Is Dan Stokely going to do that, or?
Yeah, Dan,
okay, Dan.
Dan Stuckey's here, city engineer, so he's going to, just to introduce him real quick, he's going to go into the presentation. I just wanted to point out, this is going to tie right into the next item, where we talk about the funding and shifting some funding around for the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dan.
All right, good evening, committee. Dan Stuckey, city engineer for the record. I did give a very similar presentation at the October 19th Board of Supervisors meeting, so Mr. Barrett and I guess Lori left, but it'll be somewhat repetitive for you. But I just wanted to give a quick summary of the Curry Streetscape project today, talk about, if you go to the next slide, talk about a little bit about kind of where we've been with the project, where we are today, and also where we're going. You can see on the picture there kind of showing the project limits. So the improvements, everything that'll be associated with this project is the Curry Street, so from Musser to Robinson, as well as those 5 cross streets between Carson and Curry and the Telegraph Spear Alley, and those are shown in green on that figure. So again, today I'll go over the project schedule that we're anticipating moving forward. I'll talk a little bit about the project elements that'll be incorporated with this, and then the final slide will go over the cost estimate based on the 60% design of where we're at today with the project. So a little background, again, to show you kind of where we've come with this project. 2014 was when the project was initiated. Shortly after, in 2015, the design team was formed. That was with Loomis Associates, and we also utilized the CMAR project delivery method, so the contractor was on board. That was Q&D Construction to do some pre-construction kind of consulting with the project. At that time, it was the downtown streetscape project, which included Carson Street improvements and Curry Street improvements. During 2015, that was advanced to the 60% design level, and the plan all along was at 60% to advance the Carson Street improvements to final design and construction, and at a later date come back and take the Curry Street improvements from 60% design through construction and construct in 2018. So in 2016, obviously, the Carson Street improvements were the design was finalized, it was constructed. And so in 2017, we, in about August, had a re-kickoff meeting on the Curry Street project, met with the design team. We went out and did some public outreach where we walked the corridor, met with some businesses, just kind of kept them updated on, hey, this is what we're planning on doing. We're going to plan on constructing this spring and summer. We also sent out via mail letters to the property owners in the area, notifying them of the project improvements. So that happened in September of 2017. Overall, there was really good input from the community and the businesses in the area. They were excited about the improvements that were going to be going along in Curry Street. There was some concerns, obviously, about the impacts to their business during construction. This is the same team as far as the contractor and the designer that did Carson, the same team that we'll be using for Curry. So, I'm pretty confident that we'll make the construction as seamless as construction can be as far as not impacting those businesses. So the plan moving forward is to take that 60% design, advance that to final, which we anticipate being in the late January-ish range, maybe early February, complete the design. We're planning on coming back to RAC around the 90% final design and presenting again on the project. And then construction at this point is anticipated to go in April of next spring. So that's kind of where we're going. Next slide, please. So what are those improvements going to look like? And really, they're going to look a lot like Carson Street. You're going to have, slightly wider sidewalks, some of the pavers, landscaping improvements, furnishings, some of those nice streetscape improvements that beautify downtown. As an engineer, I get less excited about the beauty and I get more excited about what goes on below the surface. So that project, we will be doing a lot of utility upgrades along with this project. As you can imagine, in the downtown core are some of the oldest utilities in the city. So we'll be upgrading water lines, sewer lines, stormwater. So we'll be doing all of that with the Curry Street project. One thing that was not included in the 60% design, and remember, the 60% design was completed back in 2015, was to underground the power. As you can see in the pictures there, and in the red dots and red lines on the plan map, there's a run of power lines that stretch across Curry Street. It looks like some of you are familiar with that. We decided one of the things we wanted to include in the design moving forward was to underground those powers, remove those power poles and take the power underground. Mostly it's aesthetics. If we're going to beautify downtown, you don't want a big power pole in the middle of the sidewalk. It just kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. So we wanted to incorporate that in the design moving forward. Also with, safety and reliability, preventing fallen power lines and such. It's a good thing to include moving forward. Another additive that was not included in the 60% design is I don't know if you guys knew this, but along Curry Street from Washington to 2nd Street, there's gas street lights. And so you can see this is a daytime picture of the lights, and gas is always coming out of them. They're always lit. So there's multiple reasons why. One reason is maintenance. These things are somewhat of a maintenance problem. Our maintenance staff, anytime a strong wind blows, the lights burn out. They have to go relight them. They're replacing the mantles. They're unclogging the gas lines. So there's all sorts of maintenance associated with that. So going to LED street lights will be much better from a maintenance standpoint. We anticipate about an 80% reduction in maintenance staff hours when we convert to the LED. Another thing is just the, energy efficiency of the LED lights. As I said, those burn all day. That's a lot of gas. So the LED lights, a lot of them, you replace every 10 years or so. So they're much more efficient. I think that's a movement citywide to become more energy efficient. So for a number of reasons, it's a good thing. The other thing I forgot to mention is the quality of light that's emitted from the gas lamps is just not very good. We went out there with a light meter and did some testing, and I believe the Carson Street LED lights produce about 30 times more light output than these gas lamps. So for a number of reasons, which I've summarized, we want to implement and put in LED street lights. So now for the other portion, at the time when this downtown streetscape project was formulated, the cross streets, there was never a formal plan how to address those cross streets. So we had, newly improved Carson Street, and then we'd have a newly improved Curry Street, but then these 5 cross streets between them would just essentially be unimproved. So recently, with the redevelopment funding, we found a funding source to essentially beautify these cross streets and kind of tie the Curry Street and the Carson Street project improvements together as one. If you want to go to the next slide. So again, we have $550,000, and Lee will talk about that, I believe, in the next item. But with that, it's about $100,000 per cross street, so we can't do quite the same improvements that we would do on Curry Street. But we can do, and there's kind of a list of a couple different things that we can do, emblems and icons, maybe some landscaping features, some furnishings, use that money to again tie those projects together. So we think we have a good plan there. We have a really strong design team that we're forming for that will be able to do some really nice things. So with that, I think is the next, the estimate. So where we are today, again, 60% design on Curry Street, and then the cross streets we haven't even started design, but we will be starting those really soon, and then bringing it all together for construction in April, as I mentioned. And this is where we're at right now with the 60% estimate. It's about $3.2 million. And again, it comes from a number of capital project accounts, because it's addressing, not just the streetscape improvements, but also the various utilities that are, need to be replaced. So that gives you a feel for the funding sources there. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Any comments or questions from the board?
Hi, Dan, thanks for that presentation. A question about the bike racks. I saw that those were the ones that were coming from, or the similar to the ones on Carson Street. I don't, maybe someone on the committee can help me. I thought there was a separate initiative, maybe through Muscle Power, to supply a bunch of bike racks to the city.
Yeah,
And I'm just worried where those are going to go, because it seemed to be fairly densely supplied with these kind of bike racks.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not sure about what Muscle Powered has planned for Curry Street, but I know on Carson Street that was implemented in the design where future artistic bike racks may be. So they left, spaces there to implement those. I know I'm actually working with them right now for 5 artistic bike racks to be installed along the Carson Street corridor. So there are designated spaces for those bike racks, which will not, they're very artistic, much different than what you see in the picture. I don't know about Curry, but I'm sure we'll be maybe coordinating there and implementing that into the design moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? I have one, just for clarification. In your presentation, you're talking $550,000 from redevelopment, and that's really 2 years, right? When we get back to our budget or allocations, that's 350 in the current year and 200 the following year, correctly?
Correct.
Is there a way that we could leave at least one telephone pole, the last one that somebody was hung in Nevada from? Outside the globe?
No. I was not aware of that. I don't think so, but the power lines, actually, the power poles do stretch beyond the project limits to the north, so there will be some that remain outside of north of Robinson.
Yeah, it will.
I don't know if it's one of those.
It will be nice to get rid of those.
Yeah,
They are pretty
yeah.
ugly down there.
Craig, what we'll do is we'll hang one of the Wingamucca ornaments from that power pole as we tear it down.
And I think any opportunity we have for public comment on any of these redevelopment things downtown, especially the Curry, the Main Street, then Curry and stuff. So I'd like to open this up now for public comment. Any public comment? Not seeing any, we'll move on. This was a discussion-only item, so we'll move on.
Could we have one? I'd like to ask our engineer. I noticed that there's no street money in this project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I just wanted to bring that up because I saw a recent letter to the editor. And of course, these decisions were made before I was on the board to go forward with this. So
Yeah.
I think that you just get that on the record, that there's no street money, that this is infrastructure tax and sewer, the rest of it.
Yeah.
Plus our redevelopment money. Thank you.
Okay, moving forward to 4D now. for possible action to make recommendation to the Redevelopment Authority regarding the expenditure of $100,000 from the fiscal year 2018 redevelopment revolving fund for the downtown Curry Street streetscape project for a total of $350,000 from the fiscal year 2018 redevelopment revolving fund for the project made to provide direction to the staff regarding redevelopment revolving fund allocation plan for unallocated funds for the fiscal year 2019. Lee?
Thank you. Yeah, let me give a brief overview on this. If you've noted in the agenda title here, there's really two distinct things, and I think I put them together because you really can't talk about one without talking about the other. The first being to shift some allocation from different years in order for this Curry Street project to complete it in 1 year. What Dan didn't mention is that, but it's in the staff report, the Board of Supervisors, approved the funding to do this all at once, because the city will get a better value with the construction going on and getting it done at one time than doing it phased over years and doing 100,000 here, 200 there, and then 100 the next year. So it's a better value. So we're trying to put the funding together to get it done in next summer, which crosses 2 fiscal years. So I'll get into the details of that a little bit. And then secondly, this is the time of year within that allocation plan for you to come up with other ideas that you may want redevelopment to do with redevelopment funds in the next, either this year or in the next year, such as you've done in the past to come up with the list of things that we have now within the budget. As I get into that, we didn't actually anticipate having much money left. I think if we looked at it last year, there was nothing. Everything was allocated, nothing extra available this year. But through both projects not being completed last year and other just general redevelopment budget savings, there's some carry forward and there's some savings here. So let me get into the details. Let me talk first about the shifting of funding for the Curry Street project. Just as a reminder, and I know as I wrote this out and I don't know how easy it was to follow. I apologize for that, so I'll try to simplify it. But the redevelopment, RAC and the Redevelopment Authority have allocated in the past already $550,000 towards this project, towards these side streets. So with this action, we're just trying to shift that $550,000 around, part of it using an extra $100,000 in saving from last year and moving that forward from what would have been in fiscal year 2020, that last $100,000. We'll add that $100,000 into this fiscal year from savings. Then we don't have to take it from 2020. Another thing that does is we need to take $100,000 out of other side streets, other places in the downtown, which are not identified yet, but the RAC felt that we want to continue these types of beautification project, but we'd have to take it out from 19 and we can shift that extra $100,000 back to 2020. And as a practical matter as well, Public Works is not going to take on another street improvement project next year, so it's probably better that funding be shifted later, and when project is identified, you have a bigger pool of money to do a bigger project. So those are highlighted there. Again, so your recommendation tonight for the $100,000 is to add $100,000 to the $250,000 you've already allocated this year, which will total $350,000 and for this year. So that's the first actual and only action you really we're asking you to take is to make a recommendation regarding that, and that motion is in the staff report if you choose to do that. And again, secondly, just to go over further this undesignated line down here under the current fiscal year, that's still a tentative number. It's not audited. It'll be after the first of the year when finance has the real number, but it was something on the order of a little less than $200,000 being carried forward. So if we take $100,000 into the downtown street project, we have the $98,000 that's currently undesignated in this fiscal year. that is pretty much accounted for. On the rest of these projects and programs are pretty much accounted for the year. In the facade improvement program, I have the update for that in there in your packet where that is. Some of that carry forward comes from the facade improvement carry forward or roll forward, as finance terms it. We've had $100,000 allocated to the facade improvement program this year. We've had $25,000 applied for. I talked to somebody today, we could see some other applications, but that's in the budget. The other one, the utility assistance program, this $20,000 for the utility assistance program, again, I think that's there if somebody comes in. So we don't know if that's going to be used. And the downtown entry signs, $30,000 is probably another thing that's going to roll forward another year. That was assigned by the RAC and then the Board of Supervisors. But I think as it applies to South Carson Street, which I gotta see did I move that in here? There's been. Is that this line? Yeah, there we go. South Carson Street right there. So as that project starts going forward, the city Public Works has applied for grants to include the section from Fairview to Musser to Fifth Street, so to connect the whole thing. So the hope is that they get grants so that that whole project can be completed and they don't leave a gap between South Carson Street and the downtown. And that would be the appropriate time to design a location and gateway signage with that. So I think this $30,000 probably in the end, and I think as we discuss it at your next meeting in February, probably be a good idea to roll that forward. Which again leaves some funding available if there are other programs that we have identified or somebody else comes in this year with other ideas. But I'll stop with that. Open it for questions. If you have any ideas, and again, the purpose of any direction. So if you have any other ideas that I need to go away and develop some cost estimates or get more information for to bring back in February, I think that's kind of the purpose of the direction that I'm looking for tonight, in addition to the motion regarding the $100,000. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation.
Any comments from the board?
I'm just curious, are we doing the 100,000 first and then going into the excess money? Or do you want to do them both at the same time?
Yeah, I think if you do them both at the same time, I think if you want to, it's up to you. I mean, I think if you want to get that out of the way and make a motion and finalize that's fine. But I think, again, in the context of the discussion and shifting money around, if you have other ideas, that's probably appropriate to discuss as well.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just take the motion on the 100,000, get it out of the way, and then if we have discussion or suggestions from the board as to possible changes in the overall budget, we could talk about that, since we won't actually be acting on it tonight. So I'm going to ask for public comment again on moving the $100,000 to this coming year. Any comments? No public comment. So I will look for a motion.
I move to recommend to the Redevelopment Authority approval of the expenditure of $100,000 from the fiscal year 2018 Redevelopment Revolving Fund for the Downtown Curry Streetscape Project. For a total, I have to read it all right, for a total of $350,000 from the fiscal year 2018 Redevelopment Revolving Fund for the project as an expense incidental to the carrying out of the redevelopment plan that has been adopted by the Carson City Board of Supervisors, and based upon the findings that there is a causal connection between the redevelopment effort and the need for the expenses. The expenses are needed to ensure the success of the redevelopment plan, and that the amount of the expenses to be given are minor in comparison to the money required for the overall redevelopment plan.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, that's approved. Moving forward. So now we will open it up for general discussion on the rest of the budget. So if anybody has any questions about Lee's or actually this board's allocation that we've started developing over the last couple of years, and it just keeps moving forward, and we do make some minor changes and things along the way, as you saw tonight. So if there's any comments or questions from the board, we'd love to hear it now.
Well, okay. I actually am really pleased with the facade improvement program, but I'd like to put in a wrinkle and talk about whether we can do more money with that wrinkle. One of the last ones that we've done is the one at the old Horseshoe Club, the northernmost, and the fellow who's doing that redevelopment or that project has said that he's going to have a loft apartments up there. I think they're already, that space is up there, and he's going to finish them off. And I like the idea of downtown housing. Could we, Lee, do something to throw a little more money into the facade improvement program, but with the caveat that maybe we do a little more if they were doing that kind of downtown housing on a second floor? It just seems to me the downtown's coming into focus, and there are going to be 10 units at the new Curry Street, Telegraph Square, the old City Bank building property. There are going to be 10 units there, and there are going to be some over at the Horseshoe Club, and there are others. And there are other second stories in the downtown and on up and down Carson Street, for that matter. How would that work, or could it?
That could work, and in fact, with the Nevada Rural Housing Authority, I plan to bring a housing study, a recent housing study they conducted, to the Board of Supervisors in December. I just sent them an email to remind them that's not on the agenda. That's pending them getting the information to me. But the plan is on December 7th to bring a housing study information to me. One of those things could be as they identify where the gaps in housing are and the needs, this is some direction that could come out of that, certainly.
How's the rest of the Citizens Committee feel on that?
I agree. I think it's a good idea, yeah. I'm also supportive down there. I live right down there as well, so I like having the housing.
Yeah, and I think we've always, I've gone from little towns around the country and have seen their redevelopment programs and things like that before we even started ours in Carson, going back to when we did the master plan. And I think a lot of them included that mixed use, I'll call it, with retail or commercial on the bottom and housing on the top. And you're right, John, I think there's a lot of other opportunities if you look across the street over the Italian restaurant, and some of those are all upper floors. I think most of them have offices in them right now, but at some point they could become residential. And so I think it makes some behooves us to at least look forward and investigate that option.
I guess my question would be, are you suggesting that we increase the overall funding for it, or just reallocate or increase the percentage that we've utilized in the past?
Well, I don't know. Lee would probably be able to tell me better, but if you add the idea of loft apartments or whatever you call them, that might trigger some more interest. Downtown life, is important if you're going to do these kinds of things. We're investing a lot of money, but so I'd want to kick in maybe another 100,000, but if we have it.
Yeah, I think that'll be important because as this moves forward and we redo the South Carson Street, I think we'll start seeing some of those projects. We had one come before us, and we turned it down at the time. And but once that all starts taking development down there, there may be folks down there that are going to be asking for funds. So I think we'll have to just see how those funds get used and if there's any left over that we could apply or increase that budget.
Well, and hopefully we'll be getting more money in the sense that the economy seems to be picking up. Keep our fingers crossed, and so more money coming in, give us an opportunity for that.
And perhaps to use a term from earlier, we could, like in the undesignated or some of the things that Lee pointed out, the utility extension assistance could maybe roll forward and be reallocated into the facade improvement for the next fiscal year.
For your part?
Another comment. Just another idea, and again, I'm not sure if this is within the scope of our committee, but I know there's been discussion about whether other areas of Carson City should be redeveloped. I can think of the more northern part of Carson Street, for example, or going towards Williams Street, which I think we have in the plan. But is there scope for us to have a study of what kind of return on investment we could get from these other areas, or do the redevelopment areas boundaries need to shift or be expanded, something like that? No, or is that something for the Board of Supervisors to lead on?
So that has so far and historically been the Board of Supervisors lead looking at that in terms of them taking the lead. Now, certainly once the board gives direction on that, that goes to the Planning Commission and it goes to RAC for public hearings and recommendations. And I think with the type of work that would be involved in doing that kind of economic study, I mean, there's certainly an expense to that. So I think that, that's a new one, so I haven't had much time to think about that. Sorry for the convoluted answer. But I think that should come from the Board of Supervisors, but which comes up occasionally for pro and con, but has never really gone anywhere. I mean, it's certainly, there's not really a return on investment. So the purpose of a redevelopment district is to get rid of blight, so that you're reinvesting portion of the increased sales tax into that area only to kind of rejuvenate the properties. So you have to start with the blighted area, and no doubt some of the vacant properties in some other areas may fall into that category. But on the other hand, the resistance to redevelopment in general is that growth in property tax doesn't go to other things that it would otherwise go to, those other distributions. So I'm not sure where that goes.
Yeah, and I'd like to have a little fuller discussion of this too. You may recall that early on, when the facade improvement program started, there was a project for which application was submitted, and it was both a business and had units in it, and it was denied. And the reason it was denied was because of the units in it. And I'm just trying to refocus that, so I'm going to be honest with you. That's my reason for bringing it up. I do recognize it's called a facade improvement program, but if you're going to improve the outside and you can improve the inside, and it's a better property overall, and you get life in the downtown, that benefits the businesses. So that's business money going into something that, I don't want to use the old rising tide lifts all boats, but that can help the businesses that are down there. So I don't think it's money poorly spent. So, but we can keep talking about this as we go forward.
Yeah, and I think just for a little more clarification on Lee's explanation there, we do have two redevelopment, or is the one at the north, it's part of two, right? Yeah. So currently there's two redevelopment districts in Carson City. One is the main downtown area that we've really been focusing on. And then there's redevelopment area 2, which includes South Carson Street, but it also includes that shopping center up at the north end of town at College Parkway. So it could bounce around. I mean, there is some there. The other thing that the downtown one is wide enough that we could do some work on William Street up here. Lee, for me, bring it back. What's the boundary on the eastern edge of the downtown redevelopment? This right out here, Roop, or is it further out?
It's Roop and also Mills Park. Yeah, it's basically Roop Street, though.
Yeah, so we could start looking at doing work on William Street because that project's going to be coming around in a couple of years when we start doing some work there, so.
I haven't seen one of those boundary maps since I left the paper, so remind me, is it just one side of route or both sides of route?
I could try to pull up the map here.
Would that answer that question?
While Lee's working on that, I've talked to the mayor and some other folks about, in a lot of cities, you see redevelopment being used to help renovate some, let's say, some blighted properties that may have been some other use before. And a lot of times the city goes in and buys those properties up. I'm not real in favor of that, but if there's some kind of incentive that this redevelopment group and the board could start discussing about maybe offsetting some taxes of, we've given the car dealers tax breaks and things, and I'm just thinking of a couple of motels and things like that down Main Street that for a developer, if we froze his property taxes at the current rate as opposed to the improved rate for a number of years, maybe that would help spur some development in those areas too. But that would require the board, and the whole plan would have to be put together, the program, how that could possibly work. But
Basically, you're talking about tax increment financing, yeah.
So back to the question, I've now put up the downtown redevelopment district, which goes to Roop Street and not to the east of Roop Street except for the judicial facility. It goes down William Street to State Street, almost to, it includes Mills Park, as I said, but on the north side of William Street as well, it goes to State Street. Which, back to the facade improvement and the success of it. So we've spent the money we have without significant outreach and advertising and actively trying to get people to do it. So I think that could and probably should be the next step from our side, as there remains to be this pot of money unused in that facade improvement program, is to do a little bit more proactive outreach with the businesses and property owners within the district. So I think that's something that we will focus on as well with whatever funding we have left so that it gets used.
So does staff have any ideas on what other projects might be of interest?
No, at this time I haven't. And I would look at it from what the goals of the Board of Supervisors, the strategic plan of that, but I can look at that and see if there's anything in downtown. I mean, I think you've brought up good ones, which is housing, which you've brought up before, and there's a way to help with downtown housing and that. But other than that, I don't have any specific ideas.
yeah, I think if you look at the map there, the district is wide enough that yes, we did turn one down that was back off of Carson Street a ways, and I think the primary reason is we got down to the point where one of the requirements is that it couldn't be started before they applied, and they were like 80% done with their project, and so it was a technicality more than anything, but that project, I think, turned out very nice, and I'm sure there's going to be some. I just think of places that we might start trying to encourage, and it might just be on Stewart Street. If the Nugget finally moves forward with their project to develop those lots behind them, then immediately across the street, maybe there's some opportunities, to join in and tie that all together too. So with that, if there's no other comments.
I have one other comment, and that is that because we were in the early phases of the design or getting into that for South Carson. We might want to do some brainstorming over the next few weeks and months regarding utilizing some of this money farther south to go after that design becomes more clear, because we have spent a lot of money downtown, and this is coming from the businesses all up and down in the district, so we should widen our scope as we go forward eventually. I'm sure there are at least two persons on this board who like that thought.
Okay, moving forward, any staff reports, Lee? Updates?
Nope, I don't have anything else. Oh, this evening, what else was I going to, there was one thing, I mentioned the housing study, and so the other thing I have on the list to do is to put together a list of RAC's duties, how it falls within redevelopment at the request of the Board of Supervisors Redevelopment Authority. With other things going on, I was hoping to put that together just to bring to RAC, but that's just going to there's a resolution that authorizes what RAC's duties are, and then there's other things at the direction of the board. So I think right now it's just a matter of identifying all those things so you understand what you do and the board understands what you do, and they can decide if there's other things you should be doing or some things you shouldn't be doing. But that I'll be working on that in the next couple months. But that's all I have to report.
Any comments or any thoughts from the RAC members themselves on things that they might want to see down the road on the agenda? I'll throw one out there. And John, you started it, but with the South Carson Street, I'd love to see an update at, I don't know that design, how it's coming, but if we can get there again a 40 or 60% maybe at the next meeting or so, just to let us know and more of the public to see those. I think any opportunity we have to to show that to the public is beneficial.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
And I guess one final thing from me is that this is my last meeting. My term is expiring, and I don't know that, I love to be on this board, and probably will apply again. Haven't made a final decision, but there's a chance that this would be my last meeting, and it's been great working with the rest of you. And to finalize, any public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of the Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee, including any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. And I'm curious, we have an audience out there. Was there
Leadership Carson City?
Very good. Yes, I went through that in their third graduating class, I think it was, second or third. So good luck, folks. You learn a lot and take advantage of it. That's how we all kind of get started up here. So we look forward to seeing your faces on some of these boards and commissions. I know there's quite a few positions open across the, various boards and commissions. So thank you for being involved with the city.
Mr. Chair.
And
Since you said that, that's a good opportunity for anybody else watching. There's, as you said, your term is up, which you may apply for, but welcome other applications, obviously, for one term. And there's also a vacancy currently, so there's two positions right now. I believe there's a citizen at large. Actually, there's two citizen at large positions. So the two positions that are coming up at the end of this year are not specific. You don't have to be a specific property owner in any or business owner in any area. It can be anybody, any qualifying person citywide. So contact the city manager's office if you're interested in applying for Redevelopment Authority Citizens Committee.
Look for a motion to adjourn.
Yes, so moved.
All those in favor, say
Aye.
aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.
You're fast on them.